Now here you see that we have got the XML file which we compiled in our command prompt. Now this XML file hasn't got any sort of type, so this isn't showing any sort of extensions, but we can surely open this in a notepad. So when you open this up in a notepad, you'll see that this the compiler did a pretty good job. It produced the XML version, it produced the XML file in a systematic manner. It first declared the version of the XML and then it enclosed this entire XML script or this entire XML markup inside this doc tag or doc elements. And then we have got our summary tags, which in terms encloses this remarks tab. So it's a pretty clean organization, and it's a pretty good job that our compiler did. So this is basically an XML file. This is actually the part that we printed inside our documentation comments. So you can clearly see the similarity between this, although the compiler did add some new elements or new tags inside to make the page more comprehensive. And that was all about this commenting. Now the next thing that we'll be looking at is about the C# keywords and the C# reserved words. So there are basically the same thing, but there is a difference between them. Now what are C# keywords? You can find this page in msdn.microsoft.com. If you look up or if you Google up for C# keywords, you'll find this page. It pops up at the link just pops up at the top of the page. Now what this C# keywords tell us is they are usually used inside our programs to tell the compiler what sort of command or what sort of behavior that we are expecting our programs to do. Now in our code that we created previously, you can see there are several keywords. This class is a keyword, so is this this public. This is also a keyword, and you have got an entire list of it. So here is this public keyword, and I guess there you'll also find many other. We haven't yet discussed about this. Here we have also got this class keyword. So they are actually like commands. So when we write these commands inside our compiler, you can actually see the compiler is coloring up all these commands in different manner than the code that we are writing. We are writing the name of the class. That's actually the name that we as a programmer are defining. It's not the name that the compiler knows, but we are introducing this name to the compiler, and so we are also telling the compiler that this is going to be a class. So don't worry about what a class is right now. Just understand that all this public, static, void, they're all keywords. A keyword inside a C# program or a C# script simply tells the compiler how to behave, what to do, or how to interact in a special perspective or in a special manner. So if I use, suppose, let's take the example, although we haven't we will be looking at this decimal and double part in a little while when we start discussing about the data type for variables. We'll be discussing about this variable right after discussing about these keywords. So this decimal part, it tells, or this double part, it tells what the data type will be of a certain variable or of a certain you can say of a certain array. or you can also say what sort of variable a certain specifier will be holding. Now if you look at this if keyword, it tells the compiler that we are going to use the conditional. So we usually use this if statement when we want suppose you have an user form, and now you have created a field that takes a name of an user. Now you always want your users to input two names at least, their first name and the last name. You don't want them inputting only their first name. So to ensure that they input only names that are strings or characters, and they input two names that has a space in between them, you will be using this if statement. So if they input two words, then it's okay. Else if they don't input two words, if they input a number, then just refresh the page and offer the form again. And if they just put in one single name, then you need to then offer the page again, or refresh the page again, so that they can type in the name or they can retype the name. So this is actually how the program will be reacting to any sort of user inputs, and that can be created using this if keyword. So this is actually telling the compiler what to do, how to behave, how to react in certain situations. So keywords are like that. Now reserved words, although I haven't shown you some of the reserved words, but reserved words are also keywords, or they will be they have the possibility of turning into keywords in the future. Now reserved words are words that are kept by Microsoft or the C# developers, so that they can be used later, or they can be turned into keywords later on if it's required. So it's better not to use these keywords for your variable names or even your class names, because the compiler otherwise won't understand what you're referring to. It wouldn't understand that it's a class name or a variable name. Suppose if you just use private in here, you see that the compiler is actually underlining with a red line, and it's also coloring the code into blue, which means that this is a keyword, and it means that this is a command to the compiler, and you can't use it as a class name. Your names must be unique, and it must not be from the keywords. So it's important that you understand what these keywords are, and you must remember. You shouldn't, I'm not telling you to memorize all of them, but you should remember what are they. And if you practice more coding, then you'll automatically understand and remember how they are used and when they're used. So let's now move on to discussing variables. Variables are the most fundamental building block in every programming languages, because variables are required to store data inside the computer's memory for temporary purpose, for temporary use. So variable actually uses directly contacts with the memory inside our computer. It stores values of different types. Your values can be numeric or numbers, your values can be decimals, your values can be integers, your values can be large exponential numbers, your values even can be strings and characters. So what variable does is that it takes all these types of values and it assigns a memory location inside your RAM, or inside your memory your physical memory situated in your CPU, yeah. So when it allocates a specific memory inside your CPU, it gets an address and it stores that value that you specify inside that address, and later on when you refer to that variable using the name, it calls it actually retrieves that value from that specific address, and it produces that value on your program. Now let's have a look how does those variable work.